So in this video, and I did make a cover slide for it, this is the video on cellular metabolism. And this is how our body breaks down glucose to make energy. So cellular respiration, which consists of three series of reactions, there's three parts to this, three steps, and they're going to come in two phases. We'll look at that in a minute. But the three steps in which glucose is catabolized or broken down into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Excuse me. So we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide and water. This is part of our normal cycle of life. The reaction consists of glycolysis, which is the first step. And we're going to see it. Glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. It does not require oxygen to happen. As long as oxygen is present, the breakdown of glycolysis then enters into the mitochondria, and we're on to steps 2, the citric acid cycle, and 3, the electron transport chain. Since these two, the citric acid and the electron transport chain, happen in the mitochondria and they need oxygen to get there, they are referred to as aerobic respiration. Now, so glycolysis and the citric acid cycle are stepwise pathways, but the citric acid cycle is really a cycle, and we'll see that in just a second. As it is going through the cycle, it's breaking things down, and we end up with these trapped high energy electrons that end up having to go through a process to get out called the electron transport chain. So this is the cycle. This is the metabolic cycle. This has just generic substrate, product, and whatever. But it's just showing how things happen, and this is an example of how the citric acid cycle works. Now, glycolysis, again, the first in the series of reactions, the first reaction, we're going to take glucose and break it down into what we call pyruvic acid. Now, pyruvic acid, creating this does not require oxygen, so therefore it's called anaerobic. It is going to produce 2 ATP, but if oxygen is present, this is where this pyruvic acid is going to go, one of two directions. If oxygen is present, then we are going to convert this to our, where it's not present, where oxygen is not present, we're going to convert this pyruvic acid to lactic acid. And lactic acid, if anybody's worked out to the point where they're hurting and got sore, that's what makes you sore. If oxygen is present, then we can enter into the aerobic respiration pathway that is in the mitochondria. So aerobic respiration, again, if pyruvic acid comes in contact, if we have oxygen there, it will turn into basically what is called acetyl-CoA, acetyl coenzyme A, acetyl-CoA. And that's going to be taken into the mitochondria, where it's going to go through first the citric acid cycle. The citric acid cycle is only going to produce 2 ATP, but it produces a bunch of high energy electrons which get trapped in between these membranes inside the cell, and it's a process that we call the electron transport chain in order for them to finally get out. And this is where we hit the jackpot. We make at least 28 ATP in this step. Now, it has to have the citric acid cycle first, because that's what produces the high energy electron. So once we get into the mitochondria, both of these steps will happen. They follow one after the other. At the end, oxygen is the last acceptor of the hydrogens, and we're actually going to form this weird molecule that is HO2. But anyway, proteins and fats can also be broken down by aerobic respiration, but there is a byproduct that they produce, and it puts it into kind of it produces a byproduct which can cause problems in the body. It's not clean burning, so to speak. Now, this is a little picture. This is designed to look like a cell. It really doesn't look like a cell at all. The mitochondria, if this was a cell, right, if we had a normal cell, the mitochondria would be this little thing over here, maybe here look like a little jelly bean with these little weird membranes in the middle of it. So they've drawn it up, they've drawn it big so you can kind of see it, but glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. It doesn't require oxygen, so it's called anaerobic respiration. If pyruvic acid comes in contact with oxygen. It is then called acetyl-CoA. It is brought into the mitochondria where it's going to go through the citric acid cycles. This is step 2. And then the byproducts of that are all these high energy electrons, and in these high energy electrons here, they end up going through the electron transport chain, which is going to, again, be like hitting the jackpot. It'll produce about 28 ATP. So the grand scheme of things, we can produce at the minimum 32 ATP, and that's at the very minimum. So that is the little look of this. I hope it makes sense. Again, 3 steps: glycolysis, citric acid cycle, electron transport chain. 2 phases. Glycolysis is the first phase, called anaerobic. Citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain are the second phase, which is aerobic with oxygen. The first phase happens in the cytoplasm. The second phase has to happen inside the mitochondria. Now, this is just a chart showing, how fats, oils can be broken down to use this. Glycerol backbone, remember triglyceride has 3 fatty acids and a glycerol backbone. The glycerol can be turned into pyruvic acid. Fatty acids can be turned into acetyl coenzyme A, but they're going to produce some waste products in it. Proteins, the building blocks of proteins are amino acids. We can use amino acids to make all of these little things, but again, it doesn't work out well. Carbohydrates are the desired source of energy. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. The cellular respiration is a very important thing to kind of have a base understanding of. Take care and have a great day.